Look at what social media is. Like, we create this online presence, and that's what people, they are doing it to convince others that that's what their life is like, but then are holding themselves on this their own pedestal. And then there's this inner battle between realizing that they're not even close to being that person, so that's adding to depression, adding pressure to try to be that person, when you'll never account to that. You'll never be that person, because that's a lie, that's a deception, right?
So now let's look at COVID, right? I was
Sure.
telling you by DM, I've kept a daily log, right? I've kept it because I wanted to observe what was happening. I had a good sense of all the protests and all the dissent that was happening in the world. I'm a specialist in certain things on China. You may know that. I have a family office, and we break down, we do forensics on their Exim Bank and on the vulnerabilities of some of their client countries. Kind of boring stuff for you, not boring for me, right?
Right.
And
But important nonetheless, though.
well, yeah, we all have to be finance people, right? You have to be a finance person,
It's
even if
part of
you're a
life.
finance person. So one of the things that I noticed immediately is people were not people were saying wear a mask, right? Wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask. But they were dealing with very imperfect information. They were saying that in January and February, and I knew those videos were not authentic. I
Right.
knew because I know a lot about you know a lot about China and their diplomacy and the language that they use, and I speak a good chunk of Mandarin. I knew they've got something called discourse power, which means that if they didn't want those little blurbs of those little videos of people spontaneously trembling and then dying on the streets, if they didn't want that circulating on Twitter, it never would have circulated on Twitter. So, and I knew that in December of 2019, in the months preceding, they were having a lot of social disruption, a lot of social dislocation. They had real problems with, Trump's trade. They were really on the losing side of it. They're having a big problem with inflation. They're having a big problem in a whole bunch of things, right? So I knew that there was a lot of protest in China. When they protest in the mainland, people die. It's not like it is here. It's not like BLM over here. Okay, the way it is here is not the way it is over there. China, you disappear. That's it. You're dead, basically. Okay, and you're certainly separated from your family. Is kind of a best case. They have a 99.9% kind of execution rate, and they don't have a judicial system the way we do. There, every single person is appointed by the Chinese Communist Party, and there's no requirement that they have any law background. Much different thing. And there's very few public type of lawyers available for their defense. So one of the things I noticed is a lot of people, particularly conservatives, were saying wear a mask, wear a mask, wear a mask. However, they were dealing with extremely imperfect, Balaji and all these kind of people. They were dealing with extremely imperfect information. There was no way that they reasonably could have come to this conclusion. And even to this day, if you listen to what's actually happening, there is no Socratic dialogue in anything that's happening now, right? So one of the things that we've all probably taught ourselves, right, is how to fragment big questions into smaller pieces, right? That's a Socratic dialogue, and whether we are aware that there's a technique for that, that's what it is. But here, people were saying wear a mask, but there was no dialectical effort being made. There was no dialectical discourse that was happening. So, and it was they were playing with all the ambiguities of words. And now, when you watch these things, notice that there is just no dialectical discourse that's happening. Every single thing is kind of like this person making a very loud kind of a declamation. So those, the maskers and the lockdowners, I kind of think almost of Bitcoiners in their own way, because they created this trend, and then the trend validated itself, and that became a very dangerous thing. And trends can be a valid strategy that can defeat a rational market. That's what we're seeing with Bitcoin right now. And just as it is with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, I'm not criticizing Bitcoin. I'm only making this small kind of connection between the two of them. But the complexity of the COVID environment has, like Bitcoin, has a lot more complexity than somebody who's just on Twitter learning about masks and a little bit about the flus can has a lot more complexity than an eager, casual person can comprehend. So it
Yeah.
creates a lot of distortion. So what I saw January, February, March is a lot of distortions that were happening. A lot, and I think of Wall Street. So um, I'm a big kind of George Soros reflexivity type of person. So I was seeing a lot of that theory of reflexivity applied to that's usually used in the financial markets that were being applied to social engagements, and I saw the same mechanisms being employed by media. The media was not just a participant; they were really the culprit, and they still are. So I created this. So I created a log, and I created it as soon as I saw the reaction that the conservatives were happening in January, the reaction to just a whole bunch of things, and then as is kind of like I guess the etymology of these type of things, it's become something much larger. So now I've actually got a staff helping me out. It's no longer just about COVID. It's about it. It's got about 50 different segments in it. I do have a team that that helps me out with it, and I'm trying to chronicle like Thucydides. I think of myself as I've read History of the Peloponnesian War probably about 6 times, and I think of myself as Thucydides, and I think of this as being my Peloponnesian War. And just as that was the first revolution, perhaps this is the last revolution. And I think what's happening now is the prequel to the science fiction movies that you've seen. And I was telling you about this on DM. When you go to a science fiction movie, right? As soon as you sit in a theater, you're already immersed in the future. You're already inside Blade Runner. You're already inside whatever it is, Total Recall, whatever movie you're watching, right? So there's not a lot of pondering.
I just popped up that the Dark City image here because you mentioned it.
You did that?
And I watched it, and I checked it out and watched that, and I mean it's I see what you were talking about. Now, I mean, by the end of the movie, I was like, all right, well, then it became like a sci-fi movie, but the mind control and the manipulation of what they were doing, is basically what we're seeing. Like you're talking about how the social media was and is now still making a significant difference in the way the masses think, and that's frightening to me.
Yeah. So, and I know the Alex Proyas. After all those Dark City references, we wound up connecting, right? Because I guess we're getting a lot of activity, and we had a 3-hour conversation actually about it, and we discussed COVID actually, because COVID, to me, the way I look at it is the same way that you've seen that kind of hopefully maybe forensics on QAnon, right? Mm-hmm. And there's that same type of tendency to, just as QAnon does, to perceive all these to perceive a connection, and there's a meaningful pattern between all these unrelated and random things. And you're seeing that with COVID. I think 2 days ago there was a video that went viral of these younger women that were like took on the appearance of older people so that they could get those injections.
The vaccination, seriously?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, so so there's a lot going on. So I started this COVID log, and I think Dark City is very important for so many different ways. I mean, just the fact that people, just even looking at the Overton window, right? Everyone should watch Dark City so they can understand, and watch the director's cut so you can get some of the voiceovers. But people are at 12 o'clock, kind of a bell rings. Let's just leave it at that. And people lose consciousness. And so when Martha wakes up, she's now Betty. Martha went to sleep with 4 kids, and she was an actress, right? A famous actress. She goes to sleep. She wakes up a streetwalker, right? She wakes up with a completely different identity, and she doesn't have the memories even of the prior existences. And we don't know how many of these cycles she's gone through. So even now with this kind of Overton window, right, is people are having to make atonement for things that they actually did yesterday. So it's even in that, the same way that you can apply Dark City to social movements that you're seeing now, because Bill Kristol, goes, the bell rings, Bill Kristol goes to sleep. Bill Kristol unfortunately wakes up the same person. However, now he's got all the guilt of the previous Bill Kristol. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you should definitely watch this. So I really think of it is in every new instance of a person, they have to expiate themselves. They have to atone for the person that they were in a previous existence. I think about this stuff a lot, and it is what it is. And I also think about how cruel and mischievous our elites were. Our elites are right now, and that they're completely unconstrained. And when people are unconstrained, their worst comes out. And so
I gotta just say, it almost looks like you could have played a part in one of these as part of the. I don't remember the name of these controllers. Where, well, look at this. Can you see this? Can you see this image?
Yeah. I get that a lot. So
you talk about Dark City a lot. So if people watch it, they're like,
So what happened, right, is now our elites are completely unconstrained. And we are now seeing the worst come out of them. And historically, what would happen is there would be some type of people would starve and they'd kill the prince, right? Or a new prince would come in and he would make peace. Or, there's just, we can go over Machiavelli and the Prince and, a discourse on Livy, political science. Nevertheless, people would get hungry, they'd kill the prince. People would be dissatisfied, they would be paying too much in taxes, they would kill the prince, whatever it was. So, because historically poverty and hunger make people industrious.
Yeah.
So now what you're seeing is the elites taking out that. So they're taking out the poverty, they're taking out the hunger. So you're also taking out people's industriousness.
What do you see happening? What is the path here?
I'm very optimistic. I just think we're going through a transformation of our people operating system.
Okay.
So, I'm hopefully everybody knows I'm extremely optimistic, and perhaps I sound to you maybe pessimistic, but that's because you have a nostalgia for a republic that hasn't existed for several years. And you might mourn the loss of our Constitution, but you never read it, right? You can't be impiety. You can't suffer in impiety if you were never pious. If you never learned the Constitution, you're not really sure what you've lost. You just know that schools are teaching crap, that this is happening, that that's happening. So, I do see what's happening with the elites. It's kind of hard to miss. I do see kind of the intra-elite squabbles, right? There's an inelastic demand for some of these, for the elites. And I think that you're seeing a lot of social disorder because the elites are trying to preserve their power, and they're very afraid of giving, that power up. And they've got all the levers that are needed to affect change that benefits them with much less efficacy and effort than, as you saw with Trump, than Trump and his insurgency could employ.
Yeah.
So I think about this stuff a lot. It's kind of boring, I guess, but I do think about it a lot.
I mean, everyone should. I mean, it involves everybody. Everyone's affected by all of this, so I mean, it should be on everyone's mind what's going to happen moving forward. We see these governors that are not releasing their emergency powers, even though they have no need for them. North Dakota just made mask mandates illegal, so you're not allowed to even do it in North Dakota. And it's like, so we have different states now making completely different moves. And then look at what just happened to Texas. Texas asked the federal government, hey, we need to basically go against your environmental regulations to handle this storm because people will die, and we know that they will. And the federal government, more importantly, the Biden administration, said, no, sorry, we're going to adhere to this. And then people started dying, and then they were like, we have to do it now, and then did it. So it's like the powers are clearly being used to control people, and it's not like we the people. Does that even exist? Like you said, I didn't read the Constitution. You're right. I haven't read the full Constitution. I can't cite the Constitution right now. You're right. It's like it's something that it's an idea that I'm familiar with, but I can't state it. I feel free still, but how long is that going to last? What is it? Am I deceiving myself? Is it
Well,
just the one
so
big illusion?
So what I think has happened a lot, and it's kind of I don't know if I would say a blight, but it's kind of it's interesting for me to observe, is that your generation and the generations that are coming past are they're working on in a factory. Okay, so I grew up, where me being industrious in that way because I was hungry, right? Is
Mhm.
when I joined a company, I was permitted to walk into every department, the marketing department, the sales department, whatever it was, even the mailroom. And I saw the living organism, right? I didn't just see the arm of it or a couple of its fingers. I got to see the entire thing, right? So I got to get a good system view. I wanted to understand the system view, and everybody was helpful to me in acquiring a really good system view of things.
Yeah.
But kids today are not learning that. So what's happening? Not only are they not learning it, but it's a bad thing within their job because everybody these days, if they're a tech worker, whatever it is working on an assembly line. And this is what happened with COVID, right? Everybody today is working on assembly line. So what happens? I'm going to put my soda down. So what happens is, you imagine you're working on assembly line, okay? You're like Lucille Ball, right? And Ethel Mirth, and you got the chocolates coming to you. You didn't see that, but what I said is really funny, right? So
I know what you're talking about actually, but go ahead.
it's funny, right? What I said is funny. I think
Yeah.
it's really funny in a moment. So you're working on an assembly line, and then a product arrives here. You stamp it, and then the product leaves. Before the product arrives, you have no awareness of it. You know that product's going to arrive on your shelf, right? And you say, it's going to have this type of dimensions, but that's about it. You have really no awareness of where it was before, its history, and all the effort required to manufacture it. You know nothing about it. All you know is that the product arrived at your station, you stamped it, and then it got sent off mystery, right?
Yeah.
Like a Smurf's Guide to Making Millions, right? So step one is it arrives there. Well, actually, it's not the Smurf's Guide to Making Millions, but nevertheless, it arrives, mystery. You stamp it, it leaves, mystery. And that's what's happening. That's what's happening with COVID. It's the reason people can't even ask questions. People, if you take a look at what's happening with anything with global warming or whatever they call now climate change, but particularly with COVID, because of all the news cycles, people are not asking questions. There is no mind effort. People who think they're smart, they are smart. They're not asking questions because they're only asking Twitter questions. They're asking 280 character questions. They're just stamping it and going on. Do you follow me?
Yeah,
So
of course.
these people are anti-consequentialists. That's what they are. They're anti-consequentialists.